Welcome back, guys. Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me from where you're watching? Thanks. This happened in the fall of 2019, back when I had just turned 18. I was living in a tiny town called Red Hollow, just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. Not much happens around here. Just trees, quiet roads, and that weird fog that rolls in almost every morning like clockwork. I was staying with my cousin Emma at the time. Her folks had moved to Florida, but she stayed behind for college and offered to let me crash with her while I figured out what I wanted to do. I was fresh out of high school, not in school yet, and trying to pick up little jobs wherever I could. Babysitting, dog walking, even dabbling in modeling. Not the fancy runway kind. More like Instagram stuff, amateur photo shoots, helping photography students build their portfolios, that sort of thing. One night I was scrolling through a local Facebook group called Asheville Creatives, looking for any part-time gigs. That's when I saw the post. It was from a guy named Lucas R., and it said he was looking for new faces to model for his conceptual photography series, whatever that meant. But the ad didn't look sketchy. It had a few sample shots that looked pretty artsy. Moody lighting, forest backgrounds, girls in dramatic poses. He offered $300 for a 2-hour shoot, said he was working on a personal project and needed help ASAP. I showed it to Emma. She squinted at it and said, "Looks a little artsy-fartsy, but not too weird." I messaged him just to see what the deal was. He replied super fast. Said he liked my look and asked if I was available that weekend. He was polite, even funny, and told me he preferred working with new or undiscovered models. He gave me an address for the shoot. It was in a part of town I didn't know well, off one of those back roads where GPS gets all confused and there's barely a street light in sight. Still, I needed the money, and I figured if it got weird I could just bail. Before I left, I sent Emma the address and told her I'd be back in a couple hours. She made me promise to text her the second I got there. If he's creepy, she said, just walk out. I don't care if it's mid-shoot. Don't wait to be polite. So I grabbed a few outfit options, stuffed them in a tote, and headed out. The drive out there was already unsettling. The GPS kept rerouting me down these narrow roads with no signs. Just trees and fences that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. By the time I found the place, I was already nervous. The studio was a large, dark gray building behind a chain-link gate with one of those plastic flaps you see on meat lockers hanging over the doorway. Not exactly what you'd expect for a photography studio, but I'd come this far, so I parked and went inside. The air hit me like a wall. It was thick, musty, and weirdly cold. The space was mostly empty, just concrete floors and high ceilings with buzzing fluorescent lights. At the far end, there was a large white backdrop, a couple of lights on stands, and what looked like a couch under a dirty sheet. No signs, no branding, just weird. Then I heard footsteps. A tall guy walked out from behind one of the curtains, late 30s, maybe older, wearing a black hoodie and jeans, holding a camera that looked too clean for the rest of the place. "You must be Talia," he said. I nodded. "You're Lucas?" "Yep, let's get started," he said. No handshake. No small talk. He pointed toward the backdrop and told me to stand in front of it while he adjusted the lighting. His instructions were short, almost robotic. Turn left, look down. Lift your chin. Don't move. But here's the first thing that made my stomach twist. He never looked at the camera's screen. Not once. He kept clicking away but never checked his shots. He didn't adjust the settings. Just click, click, click. At first I thought maybe he was just super confident in his setup, but then something else felt off. There was this faint sound coming from behind one of the curtains. A soft dragging noise, like something being pulled slowly across the floor. I looked at Lucas, but he didn't seem to hear it. Or maybe he was pretending not to. About 30 minutes in, I reached into my bag to grab my phone just to check the time. Lucas immediately said in a low voice, No phones during the session. I froze. Sorry, I said, just wanted to see if my cousin messaged me. He didn't respond. Just walked to the far corner of the room and started messing with a light that wasn't even pointing at me. While he was turned around, I opened my phone and searched for one of the photos he'd sent me before the shoot, the ones that were supposedly his portfolio. I used reverse image search just out of curiosity. The first result hit me like ice down my back. The image came from a wedding photographer's blog in Oregon. Not North Carolina, not even close. I tried another. Same thing. A travel photographer from New Mexico. None of the photos were his, none. I looked back at Lucas. He was just standing there now, not adjusting the light, just watching me. Not smiling. Just staring. I didn't even hesitate. Hey, something came up. I gotta go, I said, grabbing my bag. You're leaving already? He asked, voice flat. Yeah, sorry, it's kind of urgent, I replied, trying to sound casual. Emma's waiting outside. She wasn't. I hadn't texted her yet. But I wanted him to think someone knew exactly where I was. He didn't move. Just stood there. After a long pause, he said, All right. I kept my phone in my hand, screen lit, and walked straight out without looking back. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. When I got outside, it was darker than before. The clouds had rolled in thick and the wind had picked up. The trees around the lot swayed hard, creaking like they were going to snap. I half ran to my car, got in, locked the doors, and drove. I didn't breathe easy until I was back near town, sitting in a coffee shop with lights, people, and noise around me. That night I did a deep dive. Every photo he'd shown me was stolen. Different photographers. Different states. Even the models were tagged with totally different names. None of it belonged to him. I posted about it in the same Facebook group. Asheville Creatives described everything, down to the plastic curtain and the dragging noise. I didn't use his name, just in case, but I gave enough detail that others would recognize the setup. Within days, the post blew up. One girl said she'd been planning to go the same weekend but got a bad feeling and canceled. Another person shared a link to a Reddit thread from someone in Kentucky who described a nearly identical situation, down to the fake portfolio and the cold warehouse smell. Then someone messaged me privately. They said they knew someone who had been investigating these freelance photographers popping up in rural towns. Apparently, girls had gone missing after shoots. Not a lot of press. Not connected officially, but enough whispers to make you sick to your stomach. After that, Lucas's ad disappeared. The Facebook account was gone. No more messages, just gone. I never found out what he really wanted, what that dragging sound was, why he never checked his camera, or what would have happened if I'd stayed another hour. But every now and then, when I'm out at night and the wind's blowing through the trees, I remember the look in his eyes, that flat, empty stare, and I'm glad I left when I did. I haven't modeled since. And if you ever get a message from someone offering cash for artistic photos in some weird part of town, just don't go alone. Okay, so this happened back in 2013, when I was 21 and living in a tiny town called Pine Hollow. If you blinked, you'd miss the place. One gas station, 2 stop signs, and woods for miles. I had just moved into this old, slightly run-down apartment building called Maple Crest. It sat at the edge of town, right near a patch of woods that everyone said was haunted. Of course, I didn't believe that nonsense until this happened. My apartment was on the 2nd floor, 1 bedroom, barely big enough for me and my stuff. Rent was cheap, which should have been my first red flag. The building had 5 apartments total. The owner, Mr. and Mrs. Lewinsky, lived on the bottom floor with their teenage son who barely ever came out of his room. The walls were paper thin. You could hear someone sneeze 2 apartments over. It was kind of annoying, but I got used to it. I didn't really know the other tenants. Most of them were older or kept to themselves. I'd wave or smile if we crossed paths in the hallway, but that was about it. It was a quiet place, and honestly, I liked it that way. Now, one rainy Thursday afternoon, my best friend Lena came over to hang out. We were sitting in my kitchen, eating leftover pizza and talking about some dumb reality show when we heard the doorbell buzz. Bizzest. The buzzer was loud enough to make you jump. I didn't think much of it at first, but then we heard it again. And again. It kept going, buzzing each apartment one by one. Bizz, bizz, bizz. Lena looked at me and raised an eyebrow. Salesman? Probably, I said, shrugging. I peeked out the living room window and spotted this creepy old van parked out front. It was this dented gray thing with rust creeping up the sides like mold. It had no business being in our parking lot, especially not in Mrs. Kepler's space. She was the lady who lived next door to me and hated everyone. We figured it was some guy trying to sell vacuum cleaners or pass out church pamphlets. So we ignored it and went back to talking. About 5 minutes later, farts our buzzer again. This time Lena said, "All right. Now I'm curious." We headed downstairs together. I cracked the door open and saw a man standing there. He looked wrong. He had to be in his 50s, but his skin was all weathered and saggy like he'd been out in the sun too long. He wore a stretched-out t-shirt that looked like it had been used to wipe up oil, and sweatpants that were stained and torn at the knee. His hair was thin and greasy, stuck to his forehead like wet spaghetti. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. His teeth were yellow, and there was this twitch in his left eye that didn't stop. "Hey," he said, "I'm here to pick up the washer and dryer." I blinked. What?" He scratched the back of his neck and looked past me like he expected someone else to appear. "A woman messaged me, told me to come at 6. She said it'd be ready by the front door." I told him I didn't know anything about it and that maybe he had the wrong address. I even pointed out that my neighbor wasn't home and probably wouldn't be giving away appliances. The man got this jittery look, like he couldn't decide whether to argue or just wait. "I'll just sit out here," he said. "In the van. Maybe she'll come back." Lena and I went back upstairs, and honestly, we were both kind of creeped out. Something about the guy didn't sit right. He had this energy, like he'd had 10 cups of coffee and was still looking for more. He kept pacing, mumbling to himself, rubbing his hands like he was cold, even though it was pretty warm out. An hour passed. I looked out the window again. Still there. He was just sitting in the van, staring straight ahead, not even checking his phone or anything, just watching. And his van, it didn't have license plates. I kid you not, no plates, just a dented bumper and a cracked windshield. I told Lena, "If he's still there in another hour, I'm calling the cops." She nodded, but we were both on edge by then. I didn't want to say it out loud, but something felt wrong. And then my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, but picked up.
"Hello?"
What I heard made my stomach drop. "Hey," said the voice on the other end. It was him. "I'm still out front. Been waiting." She said 6 o'clock and it's almost 7. I don't want to wait all night, you know. I stared at the phone like it had bitten me. I hadn't given this guy my number. I'd never spoken to him before. I didn't even give him my name. "How did you get this number?" I asked. He laughed, soft, raspy, like leaves scraping across pavement. "She gave it to me. In the message." My blood went cold. "I'm the person you spoke to at the door," I said slowly. "I live here alone. No one else is here. You didn't talk to anyone else. You've got the wrong place." There was silence for a few seconds. Then he said, No, that's not right. "A woman called me. She told me 6. She said it was important." And that's when it hit me. I had posted an ad online 2 days ago trying to sell my old washing machine and dryer. I was moving back in with my dad for a bit and needed to get rid of most of my stuff. In the ad, I had stupidly listed my full address, thinking the site would only show the area, not the exact spot. And I didn't put my number in the ad, but I realized something even worse. I never changed my voicemail greeting. It was still the default robot-sounding message from the phone company. Female voice, generic. He must have called, heard that, and thought he was talking to a real person. But here's the weird part. He never left a voicemail. No message. No details. Just that one missed call before he showed up. "I think you misunderstood," I told him, trying to keep my voice calm. "That message you heard? It's just a voicemail greeting. It's not a real person. Nobody gave you a time. Nobody confirmed anything." But he didn't want to hear it. He started yelling, swearing, saying I was lying. He buzzed the door again. Then again. Then again. Over and over. He shouted up at the windows that I owed him the machines. That he'd driven all this way. That I was wasting his time. I told him I'd already promised them to someone else and he needed to leave. That showing up uninvited at someone's home wasn't okay. He didn't care. I hung up and stood by the phone, heart pounding, ready to call the cops. He kept pressing the buzzer. He sat in his van, then got out, then paced around the lot. At one point, he walked up to the side of the building and looked straight into the living room window. "My window?" I ducked. Lena whispered, "We need to call someone." Just as I picked up my phone, he got back in his van, slammed the door, and peeled out of the parking lot without a word. I locked every door and window and sat on the couch for an hour, just staring at the door like it might fly open on its own. Later that night, I logged back into the site where I'd posted the ad and deleted everything. I also found the account settings and saw, sure enough, my full address had been displayed to anyone who clicked. I changed it, deleted the listing, and learned a hard lesson that day. Never post your real address online. Not even in a small town, not even if you think no one will care, because someone might care. Someone like the man in the rusty van. And the next time, they might not leave. This happened a few years ago, spring of 2018, I think. I was 23 at the time, living in a small rental house near the edge of a quiet town called Elkwood, somewhere in upstate New York. Not a lot of people have heard of it. It's one of those places with only one gas station, 2 diners, and more deer than people. I'd just finished grad school and was getting ready to move back to my hometown, Silver Ridge, to start a new teaching job. The plan was to pack up what I could fit in my car, sell the rest, and hit the road. I didn't want to deal with yard signs or dragging stuff to Goodwill, so I put up an ad online for a moving sale, Everything Must Go. I threw in a few photos of furniture and boxes and mentioned people could swing by over the weekend. I wasn't expecting much. I got a couple of messages that were pretty normal. A woman asking about my microwave, a guy lowballing me on a dresser. Then I got a message from someone named Daniel. He said he ran a small moving service with a couple friends and happened to see my post while searching for stuff for his sister. He offered to help me move, free of charge. Said he could stop by, load whatever I didn't want, and maybe pick up a few things I was planning to leave behind. He said, "We've helped a bunch of folks around Elkwood. I don't charge for neighbors. Let me know if you need a hand." I don't know what made me pause. Maybe it was how casually he offered, or maybe it was because I'd never heard of a moving company that worked for free. He even dropped a few local names, said he'd helped Mrs. Harris on Willow Street and Jim, the guy with the garden by the post office. Those names did sound familiar. Still, I was a little uneasy. But at the same time I was overwhelmed, tired, and broke, so I figured worst case I'd just not answer the door if things felt off. I told him I'd be moving that Sunday. He said that was perfect and promised to be there first thing in the morning. Sunday rolled around. It was chilly, cloudy, that kind of gray sky that makes everything feel a little off. I had just finished boxing up my books when a white van pulled into the driveway right on time. There weren't any logos on it, just a dented front bumper and dark-tinted windows. Daniel stepped out along with another guy. Both were wearing navy blue polos with a small patch on the sleeve that said Elk Movers. I'd never heard of them. Daniel looked to be in his mid-30s. Clean-cut, short brown hair, very polite. The other guy was quiet, kept his hands in his pockets most of the time, and avoided eye contact. They got to work fast, lifting boxes, wrapping furniture in old blankets they'd brought, taping things up tighter than I ever would have. Honestly, it felt like a huge weight off my back. Daniel kept chatting with me while they worked, making small talk about the weather, asking about my new job, what part of Silver Ridge I'd be living in. At one point, he asked, "Do you have an alarm system in the new place?" I blinked and said, no. Should I? He laughed kind of awkwardly. A lot of renters forget. Empty places are magnets for trouble. Then he looked around my current house and asked, "This one have an alarm?" I said no again. It's always felt safe here. He nodded slowly like he was thinking about something. Then said, "It's good you're leaving. Half-empty houses, they get noticed." Something about the way he said it gave me goosebumps. His tone didn't match his smile. They finished up in under 2 hours. As they were about to leave, Daniel handed me a small folded piece of paper. He said it was a list of moving tips, things to make unpacking easier. I thanked him and watched the van drive away, disappearing around the corner without a sound. I opened the paper after they left. It had a few basic tips written in neat handwriting. Label your cords. Keep essentials in one box. Check smoke detectors. But scribbled at the bottom was something else. Something I hadn't seen him write. Locks keep honest people honest. Later that day, I drove to Silver Ridge and started getting settled into my new apartment. It was nothing special. Small second floor, kind of creaky, but it was mine. The next few days were a blur. I started orientation at work, met a few of the other teachers, tried to ignore how homesick I felt. I barely thought about Elkwood. Until Wednesday. That morning I got a call from my old landlord, Mr. Carter. He sounded tense. "Someone broke into the house." I stopped cold. "What?" He explained that a neighbor had noticed the back door was hanging open early that morning. When Mr. Carter went to check it out, he found the door frame splintered and a window in the back bedroom smashed in. Most of the furniture I hadn't sold, gone. A few boxes, a lamp, even the old rug I left behind. I felt my stomach drop. That uneasy feeling from Sunday came rushing back. At first, I told myself it was just random. Houses get broken into all the time, especially empty ones. Maybe someone saw them moving. Sale ad and figured it was an easy score. But then I started thinking, really. Thinking. The break-in happened just 2 days after I moved out. Whoever did it knew the house was empty. They didn't vandalize anything. They didn't trash the place. They only took what was small and easy to carry, like someone who knew exactly what had been left behind. That night I sat in bed staring at the ceiling, playing that day over and over in my head. Daniel asking if I had an alarm, asking if I'd moved out completely, asking for the name of the town I was going to. At the time, those questions didn't seem weird, but now they felt like a checklist. I grabbed my laptop and opened the Craigslist messages. I tried to look up the phone number he'd used to text me. Nothing came up. No name, no matches. It was probably a burner. The email he used? A string of random letters and numbers. I reported everything to the police the next day. I gave them all the info I had, the messages, the number, the elk mover's name. The officer I spoke to just shook his head. He said, "You're not the first. People pretend to be movers or handymen. They gain your trust, scout your house, then come back after you're gone." He said it was almost impossible to catch them unless they got caught in the act. Fake names, fake phones, fake uniforms. By the time anyone realizes something's off, they're long gone. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way Daniel moved through the house like he already knew the layout. The way his friend never said a word. That plain white van. That note. Locks keep honest people honest. I searched local forums, Reddit threads, even the Elkwood Facebook group. I found 2 posts. One from a woman who said a free moving helper showed up and creeped her out so much she sent him away. Another said her garage had been emptied out 2 days after she moved. Same description, same van. Same weird, overly helpful offer. That's when it really hit me. Daniel wasn't Daniel. There was no elk movers, and I hadn't just gotten lucky with free help. I'd been targeted. Nothing priceless was stolen. But it wasn't about that. It was about how someone had wormed their way into my life, smiled at me, lifted my couch, and then came back to take what they wanted when I wasn't looking. Now, I don't post my address online, ever. If I sell something, I meet in a busy parking lot during the day. And I warn everyone I know if someone offers help out of nowhere, especially if it seems too good to be true, trust your gut. And maybe check their van just in case they come back.